If even half of these new reports are true, then Jenny and Sumit are not fighting for their relationship anymore, they are fighting for time. And that is what makes this update feel so different from the usual 90-day chaos. Because this is not about disapproving parents, culture clashes, or another dramatic reunion. It is about a possible medical crisis, an immigration deadline, and a couple realizing that love means something very different when life suddenly becomes fragile. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, before we go further, I want to be careful here. A lot of this is based on circulating reports and online claims, so I am not presenting every detail as fully verified fact. But even at that level, this story is hitting people hard for a reason. Because Jenny and Sumit have always been one of the most unusual, divisive, and somehow strangely resilient couples in the entire 90-day universe. Fans have watched them survive lies, family pressure, social judgment, and years of emotional exhaustion just to get married. So when a health scare enters the picture, it changes the emotional scale of everything immediately. This stops being reality TV mess and starts feeling real in a way that makes people uncomfortable. And honestly, that is why this update matters. Let's start with the biggest thing, the reports around Jenny's health. The story being pushed online is that she may be dealing with ALS, a brutal neurodegenerative illness that can slowly strip away movement, independence, and control over the body. If that is accurate, then the emotional weight of this is enormous, because it means Jenny and Sumit are not just facing another hard season of life. They are facing something that rewrites every part of daily existence. It changes the relationship. It changes the future. It changes the meaning of time itself. Suddenly, it is not about next month or next year. It is about what can still be done now. And in my opinion, that is why the part of this story that people are connecting to most is not the diagnosis itself, but what it says about Sumit's role. Because if he really has shifted into full-time caregiver mode, standing beside her through testing, uncertainty, and physical decline, then this is the most serious version of commitment we have ever seen from him. Not promises, not romantic speeches, presence. That matters a lot. Now, let's rewind for a second, because to understand why this update is landing so heavily with fans, you have to remember what Jenny and Sumit always represented in this franchise. They were not the stable couple. They were the impossible couple. A catfish story that somehow became a real marriage. A 30-year age gap, an American grandmother and an Indian man fighting against tradition, family outrage, and public humiliation for over a decade. They survived things that should have broken them many times over. So if people are now hearing that they may be facing a genuine health crisis, the emotional reaction is immediate. Because this is the one obstacle no amount of love story energy can simply talk away. This is not another family argument. This is reality. Now, here is where the visa issue makes everything even more heartbreaking. If Jenny's best treatment options really are back in America, but Sumit still cannot easily travel with her because of immigration complications, then the story becomes cruel in a very specific way. Not only is she sick, but the one person she depends on most may be legally blocked from moving with her in the way she needs. That turns bureaucracy into the villain. And honestly, there is something especially infuriating about stories where the emotional answer is obvious. Let the husband be beside his wife. But the legal system drags its feet while the clock keeps moving. That is why the humanitarian visa angle is so important. It is not just paperwork. It is the difference between going through something terrifying alone or with your primary support system standing next to you. And if Jenny's daughter really is traveling to India to help fight for that process, that says a lot about the seriousness of the situation. Because now, this is not just a couple struggling privately. It is a family mobilizing around survival. That changes the emotional temperature again. Now, here's the what if I keep coming back to. What if this becomes the moment that finally shows who Sumit is when there are no more cameras, no more external villains, and no more easy excuses? because one of the long-running questions around their relationship has always been whether Sumit's love is strong enough when life stops being fantasy and becomes responsibility. If these reports are even partly true, then this is that test. Not one based on romance, one based on action, sacrifice, consistency. And in my opinion, that is why the public response has been so emotional. People are not just reacting to illness. They are reacting to the possibility that the strangest love story in this franchise is now being tested in the most serious way possible. Now, let's talk about the financial side, because this is another reason the story has blown up. The idea that treatment, travel, private care, and emergency planning may be forcing them into a financial survival mode is something audiences understand immediately. It is one thing to hear that a couple is in crisis. It is another thing to realize that the crisis has a meter running beside it. If fans really have rallied and raised serious money to help, then that tells you something bigger than gossip. It tells you that people still care deeply about these two. Maybe not everyone, maybe not without skepticism, but enough people still believe in their bond that they are willing to show up when things stop being entertainment. That is rare and honestly kind of beautiful. Now, let me lock in a prediction here. If this situation is real, then it is going to permanently change how audiences see Jenny and Sumit. Not because every problem between them suddenly disappears, but because hardship like this strips away performance. It shows what is left when image no longer matters. And if what is left is loyalty, patience, and a real willingness to stay, then I think this may become the chapter that redeems them for a lot of viewers who were never fully convinced before. But that also depends on how they get through it, because surviving the initial panic is one thing. Living in the aftermath is another. Long-term illness, treatment stress, caregiver fatigue, immigration delays, financial strain. That kind of pressure does not create one emotional climax and then fade away. It settles in. It changes routines. It changes identities. It changes what the future even means. And that is why I think this update, true in full or not, has such a strong emotional pull. It exposes the gap between reality TV love and actual real-world devotion. Now, before I wrap up, here is the fast-fire version of why this story is landing so hard. Jenny and Sumit were always the impossible couple, which makes a real medical crisis hit harder. The reported illness changes everything about what their relationship now has to carry. The visa issue turns a private emergency into a bureaucratic nightmare. Sumit's role is no longer about romance. It is about care. The family's involvement tells you the situation feels serious, and fans showing up financially proves this story touched something far more human than ordinary reality TV drama. So overall, whether every single online detail ends up being accurate or not, this update matters because it forces people to see Jenny and Sumit through a completely different lens. Not as a scandal, not as a meme, not as a bizarre franchise couple, but as two people possibly standing in the middle of a brutal fight for time, dignity, and the right to face a medical storm together. But anyway, that is my breakdown of the Jenny and Sumit Health Scare reports and why this story is resonating so strongly with so many people. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. If this really is the hardest chapter of their relationship, do you think this is the moment that proves how strong their bond really is, or the moment that tests it beyond what love alone can handle? I will catch you in the next one.